Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you. So today we're going to be taking a look at some more games with Runick Spright. It's funny, actually, at the time that I am recording this video, we actually just had the announcement of the Runick hits. So, yeah, Destruction, Freezing Curses, and Slumber are all going to be going to two, actually within the next couple of days as soon as this video comes out. So, yeah, this will be the kind of last instance of playing this deck at full power. I am definitely not sad to see those Runick cards go to 2. I'm actually pretty eager to see how it will impact this deck and its place in the meta. I mean, it's definitely going to be a consistency here, right? Like, of course it will be. But we'll have to see exactly how that affects the deck moving forward here. So, I did make a couple of changes to this list, some very, very slight ones. Notably in the extra deck, I included Knightmare Phoenix. I don't think was in here before. It's mainly against the mirror match or other decks where you want a back row destruction very, very badly, but mostly for destroying opposing Runick Fountains here. Some slight changes I made to the main deck as well. I went down from 3 Lava Golem to 2, and I also took out one of the Runick cards, the Smiting Storm, and then I put in 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. One thing that I thought was quite interesting that we saw during the MCS week number 3, a lot of those Runick Spright decks that were topping were actually not playing Lava Golem in the main deck, which I thought was kind of interesting. Instead, a lot of them were opting for a set of Triple Tactics Talent, which makes sense to me. Lava Golem is very much a card that's really only good going second, and in a best of 1 format, like, I find it really hard to devote even 3 slots to cards that are specifically good going second. Just because I really don't like having these cards that just sit dead in your hand on turn 1. Now, to be fair, if Lava Golem is dead in your hand on turn 1, you can just pitch it for Hugin, and that's fine. But I think, honestly, I'd rather just kind of cut down on those cards altogether, if possible. Lava Golem is still very, very good in this deck, don't get me wrong, and it's sometimes even necessary against certain boards to actually allow this deck to play well going second. You know, I know a lot of people kind of think that, oh, this deck can play first or second, and it doesn't care, and that's why it's so powerful. And that's really only true when this deck is playing exactly 2 or 3 Lava Golem. If it's not playing Lava Golem, then I do think you have a bit more of an uphill battle going second than a lot of people realize. Because, you know, in that regard, they have their Disruption set up. It's a lot harder to resolve your Runick Fountain, so on and so forth. I know a lot of people are not going to be sad at all to see these Runick hits, and again, I'm not sad to see them either, but I will say this much. I will say this much about Runick, and I've said this in videos in the past, and I've alluded to it in some comments that I've left in response to other comments here on the channel as well, but I don't think Runick is a toxic deck. I think it's fine for a good mill deck to exist in Yu-Gi-Oh! I honestly don't really like the use of the word toxic to refer to the mill strategy. Like, I don't know. Everybody's got their own definition of what toxic means. When I think toxic, right? Like, as far as how it relates to Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm thinking cheating, right? I'm thinking people who use slurs as their usernames. I'm thinking about those kinds of issues. That's what I would call toxic gameplay. A mill strategy? No, that's so far from toxic. And yeah, some people don't like their deck getting milled, and some people don't like playing against control decks because they find it boring. That's perfectly valid. You don't have to enjoy. I'm not saying you have to enjoy playing against Runick, but I do think that saying that this is an inherently and objectively bad thing for Yu-Gi-Oh! To have, I could not disagree more with that take. I think it's totally fine for decks to have viable. The thing is, we've just never really seen a control or mill deck on this level in Master Duel, or in Yu-Gi-Oh! Really. In Magic the Gathering, you tend to have decks like this a little bit more often, where it's just a heavy control deck that wins by limiting what the opponent can do, and even though, yes, you will win the game over time, essentially your win con is your opponent conceding. I understand that when you're on the receiving end of that, it feels bad, but again, that doesn't mean it's any less viable of a strategy, in my opinion. That is just my 2 cents there. You are, of course, welcome to disagree. So as far as this deck and how it's going to play after the Runick hits go through, it'll be interesting, right? Because we'll still get to play 3 Tip and Flashing Fire, which is nice, but Yeah, this deck is already, like, this iteration in particular that runs 15 Runick quick play spells, that's already cutting it pretty light. Like, I probably should have the 16th card, whether it's a Smiting Storm or a Dispelling, probably should have that in here. So, the idea that, like, we have to include 3, but arguably with this particular list, maybe even 4 more Runick spells, like, you're really gonna have to dip into the the subpar ones. Like, you know, we're gonna have to play at least one of each Smiting Storm and Dispelling. Probably gonna have to play a Golden Droplet, and then, like, maybe a second Smiting Storm if you want to play 16 Runick quick play spells. But that's so bad. Like, that's such an awful suite of quick play spells. I don't know. I think this list change is going to be more impactful than a lot of people realize, honestly, in my opinion. That said, I don't necessarily think Runick Spright is, like, going anywhere. I think it's probably still going to be a tier 1 deck, but it'll definitely be less powerful than it was. And I think Pure Spright, because I've said this before many times, the power level difference between Pure and Runick Sprights, I think, is already very close, a lot closer than most people realize. I think with this consistency hit to Runick Spright, we are going to see Pure overtake it as the best tier 1 deck. That's my prediction anyway. We could also see, like, some combination of Math Mech, Branded, and Sword Soul even potentially move to be on par with, if not stronger, than Runick Spright. We'll just have to see how it shakes out, but I don't think it's a stretch to say that this deck did definitely take a power level and consistency hit by losing 3 copies of its Runick spells. So, let's see, I think that's about everything I wanted to say about the deck itself. So as always as ever, we're just going to break it down card by card and then look at some gameplay here. We're on 3 Maxx, 1 Wind-Up Kitten, 1 Iparia, 1 Capshell, 3 Spright Blue, 3 Spright Jet, 1 Spright Red, 1 Spright Carrot, 2 Lava Golem, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Runick Fountain, 2 Called by the Grave, 3 Runick Tip, 3 Runick Flashing Fire, 3 Runick Destruction, 3 Runick Freezing Curses, 3 Runick Slumber, 2 Spright Starter, and then finally 1 Spright Smashers. For the extra deck, we're playing 3 Hugin, the Runick Wings, 1 Geri, the Runick Fangs, 1 number 65 Djinn Buster, 1 Onibimaru Soul Sweeper, 2 Gigatic Spright, 1 Knightmare Phoenix, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Dharc, the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 2 Spright Elf, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, and then finally 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax. It's going to round out the list. Let's take a look at some gameplay. So our first duel here is going to be up against Numerons. It's been a long time, actually, since I've played against Numerons on ladder. I actually just realized it's pretty interesting to see them in Diamond 1 of all places, but to each their own, I suppose. Anyway, I'm going to be taking the first turn here, and this is exactly what I like to see. Well, you know, to be fair, I would have liked to have seen a Spright Blue, Jet, or Starter in addition to all this, maybe instead of the second Freezing Curses, but you know what? I'll take a handful of Runick spells as a consolation. That definitely seems good enough, so opponent's going to hit us with the Droll and Lockbird. It's obviously hugely impactful against Runick because now I can't get my draws off of the Fountain, but I will still be able to get this Triple Tactics Talent off. One of many reasons why I like this card, like I've said many times before, is that it's good going first or second, and going first when your opponent uses a monster effect to disrupt you, you can at the very least like hit them back and be like, alright, let's look at your hand and make sure your turn 1 is going to be unplayable as well. So actually, it's interesting. I went to activate the talents, and my opponent chained the Numeron wall. So this card actually does not add the Numeron network to the hand. They can activate it directly from the deck. They activate it onto the field. So pretty good chain for my opponent here. That means I won't be able to hit the Numeron network with the talent. But let's take a look at the rest of their hand here. Alright, they're on Lava Golem, Numeron Calling, and Limiter Removal. The Lava Golem I obviously don't care about because I'm just going to end on 1 monster this turn anyway. Numeron Calling, doesn't matter, they've already activated the network. But of course this Limiter Removal is going to be able to OTK me even through just having just the Hugin on board. So, or rather even through Hugin plus Freezing Curses plus Slumber, through all my disruption, that Limiter Removal is going to be able to OTK me. So I'm going to put that back, and during my opponent's draw phase, I'm just going to fire off this Slumber on the Hugin. That way I get to draw 3 cards as early as possible, and potentially, hopefully, get a Destruction here to destroy the Numeron network. I don't, so it's a bit unlucky, but it's all good, because we're still absolutely going to survive this turn anyway. All I need to do is Freezing Curses one of these Numeron monsters, and then, yeah, I'm going to live this turn. funny, actually, if I hadn't used the Slumber, now that I think about it, well, I still would have taken 6,000. But I wouldn't have had to use the Freezing Curses, to be fair. I don't know, you can make an argument either way, I guess. Because now that I have Freezing Curses in Graveyard, that's going to make my Fountain in future turns draw more. But yeah, this is why I had to get rid of the Limiter removal, because even though I had the ability to survive this turn, I definitely would not have if my opponent had been able to Limiter their monsters. They get off the number C1 effect, but I'm not really worried. I don't think it's going to be difficult at all to get this Neuron Network off the board by the time my opponent's turn comes around. They've got a Gamma for the Iparia, which is annoying, but not really anything beyond that because I have a Spright Starter. So, yeah, fortunately, I did not need that Iparia to resolve. If I didn't have the Spright Starter, or a blue, or a jet, or a Spright monster in general, then yeah, that definitely would have been bad. But here, I don't know why. Now that I think about it, why did I protect blue? I definitely should have just summoned a Spright monster or a Runick monster there, but I guess we'll do it now with the Flashing Fire. Yeah, I'll discard the Capshell to get another Runick Fountain here, just to like get the Capshell in my graveyard. That way, later on, I can bring it back with the Spright Elf, and then potentially use his draw card later in the turn. Gigantic Spright for Carrot, just to get that in the rotation. I want to get that on board with my Spright Elf, so that way, if my opponent's got another Neuron Network, I can negate and destroy it. Yeah, here's the Knightmare Phoenix, as I mentioned. It's I typically use it in the mirror match, but I'll definitely use it here against the Neuron Network. This way, I also don't have to rely on Spright Smashers, so now between the Carrot and the Smashers, I have multiple ways to answer a Neuron Network on my opponent's turn. Also, note that I did not move to battle phase, I moved straight to end phase. Don't be like me. You're going to see me do that a lot in these games. I will freely admit that is a huge misplay that I absolutely need to do better about doing when playing this deck is you have to move to your battle phase, because if you go straight to end phase, it won't skip your battle phase. And then if you try to move to battle phase later, that one will get skipped. So don't be like me in this, not just this duel, this video, honestly. Because like I said, I'm so awful about making that misplay. Make sure that you're moving to battle phase every single time in this deck when possible. Every single time. So here my opponent drops a Lightning Storm. I thought they were going to hit my monsters, which I was a little bit concerned about, but they just hit my back row instead, which is totally fine. I don't need this Runick Fountain, and then with Carrot in play, well, I was going to say with Carrot in play I don't need the Smashers, but I admittedly did forget about Lava Golem, both actually just now and in the actual game. Fortunately, my opponent's last card was not Neuron Network. I think I actually knew, though, like their last card. Yeah, I think I know their last card is Neuron Calling, so okay. Well, in any case, it was still a bit of a misplay for me not to play around Lava Golem there. I definitely should have taken better care to do that, but it's not the end of the world. And here we can just go into another Spright Elf anyway. Reestablish the Iparia. I was going to say the Carrot, but we can actually just wait till our opponent's turn to do that. Iparia draws this red, which is fine. We'll just slam that down in addition to the blue. Get a Jet for a starter, and I mean, at this point, like, we're so far ahead of our opponent. As always as ever, this is the state you want to eventually get in with Runick Spright, where, like, I mean, yeah, we're not about to attack for lethal like this turn, but our opponent's on one, about to be 2 cards, compared to how many resources we have access to. It's just so, yeah, it's just, our opponent's, like, so far out of this game at this point. And then I can even make an IP and a Djinn Buster just to, here I move to the battle phase, as you can see, like I was supposed to, but yeah, with all this stuff, I really don't know how my opponent could possibly come back at all here. I'm going to use the Elf to bring back the Carrot, and then I'll Starter for blue to put a card in hand. That way I have the option to Knightmare Unicorn with the IP Masquerena if I need to as well. Although I think Avramax should also, like, do it, right? Or is Avramax once per turn? I can't remember. I think even if it's once per... No, it's once per battle. Jesus. Okay, yeah. Avramax would definitely have done it here. Alright, yeah. I'm just going to use Knightmare Unicorn to get rid of my opponent's last card before I just battle for lethal here. So yeah, this is a pretty standard Runick Spright game. Again, it's really just about controlling your opponent down and making sure they're just not able to do anything until you are poised to strike for lethal, which, to be fair, I would have been last turn had I not misplayed, but there you go. There is again, it's a fairly standard Runick Spright game, so now that we've seen that one, let's go straight into the next duel. Alright, this one here is going to be against Hero. The name is Zero, and it looks really familiar. I'm trying to think if this was actually the Hero player that I fought in the MCS last week. I was trying to remember, but I don't, unfortunately, but whatever. Our opponent's going to go first here. Not ideal for us, especially given that we didn't open Lava Golem. Like I mentioned before, I think this is a weakness of Runick Spright that people tend to overlook because of the existence of Lava Golem, is that this deck really does struggle sometimes going second. When your opponent is able to have like a fully set up board, it's not hard for them to be able to disrupt your Runick Fountain, and obviously if the Fountain gets hit, then that whole engine goes down. And then at that point you're just playing a worse Spright deck, so. Yeah, I mean, for as like prevalent as Runick Spright is right now, it's one, about to be less prevalent, and two, far from unbeatable. Like, I mean, this is the case with like every single tier like meta deck, right? Like, there'll be a certain subsect of people that likes to pretend it's completely unbeatable, and it's totally unfair in that regard, but nah, Runick Spright's far from unbeatable. Even when they go first and get all their stuff established, like, it's definitely still far from unbeatable. Alright, looks like they're dropping the DPE on us. Looks like a pretty standard turn 1 hero board. Well, a pretty good one, actually. They've got the Dark Law and the DPE established here. And you don't even always get Dark Law online every single time, so it's looking pretty good. I think I actually remembered what I remember the out how I end up outing this board. It's pretty gross, but we'll see here in a second. As my opponent passes to us, we're just going to draw for turn and casually rip Lava Golem off the top of our deck. So, but this is what I was talking about. Like, look at this hand. Like, look at this hand without Lava Golem, and look at our opponent's board, right? Like, I mean, yes, this is an extreme example where they had Plasma plus D-Force plus Dark Law plus DPE, but like, even against, like, let's say Sword Soul, for example, like, these 5 cards up against Chi-Shao plus Baron, it wouldn't have been impossible to play through, but it absolutely would have been an uphill struggle. Without Lava Golem, I think just about any deck is going to be an uphill struggle for Runick Spright going second. So the deck does have its weaknesses. I'm not saying it's like, you know, that makes it completely fair and it didn't deserve to get hit. I do think that this deck deserved to get hit in some capacity, but I think to like try to pretend like this deck is unbeatable and the bane of Yu-Gi-Oh! And everything wrong with the game right now, that's just, I don't know, I think that's being dramatic personally. Alright, so let's see, I'm going to jet for Smashers, because I've already used Starter here, I think? No, I didn't use Starter. Oh, that's right, we're getting Smashers, so that way we can out this Dark Law later if we need to. Like, if we don't end up comboing into a way, like in case our opponent's last back row end up being some kind of disruption. But at this point, the opponent's just going to concede. I really wanted to show this game just to showcase like how important it is for this deck to open Lava Golem going second. Like, it's so easy for you to lose if you don't have Lava Golem, which is kind of like the paradox of it, in particular this deck, right? Because like, you don't want to play those going second cards, too many of them anyway, because then they just suck going first. But then you kind of need them, at least Lava Golem, I think you really do kind of need in this deck. That's why I'm on 2 Golem, 2 talents for this current iteration. I really like that ratioing right now. So anyway, there's that duel. Let's go and take a look at the next one here. Alright, so we're up against Runick, but we're not a mirror match here. We're actually playing against Stun Runick, which is definitely going to get hit a lot more than Runick Spright will, that's for sure, with this man. That's with the Amano Iwato going to 1, but we're going to take the first turn here, and it honestly feels like we're just on a regular Spright plan with this kind of a hand. No Runick cards, but that's fine. You know, we still obviously have like far more than enough plays. I do actually just want to make sure here that I am on the correct. Okay, we are on the correct deck. Just want to make sure I didn't accidentally click like a pure Spright game or something. But I will say it does feel pretty bad when you don't have access to the Runick engine on turn 1, because at that rate you are just playing a worse pure Spright deck. Like getting the Iparia here, like, you know, Swap Frog would have been more powerful. But again, That's not to say I think you should put Swap Frog in Runick Spright. I'm just saying, like I said, when you don't open the Runick cards, it feels a little bit bad. But, I mean, look at this board. I can't complain too much. Like, we still ended on Red and Carrot and Smashers and Elf and IP. Like, we ended on the whole gambit here of just responses. So, opponent was about to end their main phase. So, I kind of figured they were going to be going for an evenly matched here, which is why I decided to just use Spright Elf for Iparia. I thought to myself, you know, I'll just get the draw while I can. And then to be fair, I can carrot the evenly by sacking the Iparia and then keep all of my other responses up. But the opponent actually had a Runick Slumber going into Geri and battling the IP Masquerena. Looks like they're trying to get rid of the IP Masquerena with the Geri's effect. I don't really know why. I mean, did they not see me search Smashers? And even then, I still have Red on board. Although, to be fair, this could be them trying to trigger my Red or Carrot, like get me to use that. So that way they're not going to be a problem for my opponent on their turn. But I'm just going to go ahead and Slumber away the Geri. That way it'll get banished, and it won't get the effect to destroy one of my cards. And I'm definitely going to give up the... actually, I don't know if I should have given up the Spright Red here now that I think about it. There really was no reason for me not to give up Iparia, right? Huh. Yeah, I don't really know what was going on with that. Yeah, I definitely should have banished the Iparia, but oh well. I guess it didn't really matter, because, like, either... Oh, no. I wanted the Iparia to go back to the graveyard. That's why I did it that way. I remember now. Yeah, I wanted Iparia to specifically go back to the graveyard. That way I could bring it back again with Spright Elf for more draws. And I figured that was going to be more important once I saw Runick cards than having the Spright Red available, because Spright Red is really not going to negate that as much in this matchup. That's right. There was an actual reason why I did it that way. I remember now. So yeah, as soon as my opponent resolves or is activating the Runick Fountain, I'm just going to chain IP Masquerena. That way my opponent won't be able to, like, activate a Runick spell and get any draws here. I'm so glad I pulled this Altar Unicorn. I'm so glad. I was really worried that I was going to have to spend far too many gems trying to pull it, and I definitely wanted it badly enough to pull for it, so... I got really lucky. For those who don't follow me on Twitter, didn't see that tweet actually, I managed to pull both this and a Royal Ibly in the same 10-pack after spending a total of 2,000 gems trying to pull for Knightmare Unicorn. So I definitely cannot, you know, complain about my luck there. Here the opponent's going to flip up. There can be only one, but against Spright, it's actually like, it's a little annoying for the Thunder. Like, you can't have multiple Spright monsters on the board, but especially for my current board state, like, I'm totally fine with this. I don't care at all. Indeed, I'm just going to use Spright Elf to bring back Iparia because it's a reptile, so it's a different monster. I get to draw a card, and the opponent's just going to concede. It was a little bit early. Like, I didn't think I was going to get lethal that turn, but it was going to be lethal over the course of 2 turns at the very least, and it really just depended on what I would have drawn, how I was going to set up the board for my opponent's turn to try to make sure they didn't have a comeback. But I guess the opponent decided they didn't really have the ability to come back because it just conceded there. So, all right. We have one more game to look at. Let's dive straight into it. And for our final duel, we have another game against heroes, but this one is a different hero variant. I'm assuming it's some kind of like hand loop FTK kind of a thing, because I saw like the smoke grenade, and I saw the Infernoble stuff, and just all that kind of stuff going on. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's probably just like an FTK or a turn 1 hand loop build, just pretty much an FTK build, so. Anyway, I'm going to start by activating the Runick Tip, just to see if I can get a fountain going here with my Freezing Curse. His opponent's got an Ash Blossom, but I'm just going to use the Call By in response. Because, like, I'm not really as concerned at all about Maxx. Plus, I also have a Maxx in my hand, so I'm not really trying to negate it with Call By. That way I can use Maxx on my opponent's turn, but, like, yeah, even if my opponent, like, activates a Maxx and resolves it here, which I think that, yeah, I think they actually do. I can just end on... That's the nice thing about Runick Spright, is that it plays around Maxx a lot better than, like, pure Spright does. In that, you know, ending on Hugin plus Fountain for a bunch of Runick spells is a viable, like, way to end turn 1. But most other decks don't really get the luxury of doing that. So here I'll use the talents to look at my opponent's hand, just to kind of see what's going on. It was the Mask Change plus, like, a hero trap card that's, like, it fuses. So I figured, okay, the mask change is very more likely to be the relevant card here, so I'll go ahead and put that back. And then from there, I'll just set the Spright Smashers. I'm really not trying to use Spright Smashers because it's going to cost me my Hugin on board and the Spright Blue in hand, but I'll have it set just in case I need it. So they're going to start by normal summoning the Vision Hero Vion. I'll just Freezing Curses it, just because, you know, I figured if my opponent just top decked this and normal summon to try to go into a play, I'll just stop that play right now. And I actually managed to banish the Smoke Grenade of the Thief off of my opponent here. Granted, to be fair, like beyond turn 1, I don't think they're really trying to go for like this kind of a hand loop, but still nice to know that that is no longer a factor here. I'll get to draw just a card as well. Opponent's going to flip up the... Oh, sorry, my... Oh. Sorry about that, my alarm's just going off. Anyway, yeah, the opponent's going to flip up the Shadow Mist here. I'm going to chain the Maxx in response, because I wasn't sure if they were going to go for like a Link 2 here, or maybe a Rank 4 or something, you know. It'd be very easy for my opponent to just like Link Summon. So, firing off the Maxx, my opponent's face down card ended up being called by the grave, so... alas, you know, there is not going to be any drawing for me this turn. They do indeed go into a Link 2. It ends up being the I Sold. Again, we do have the Smoke Grenade banished already, so that at least is no longer a factor. Looks like they're going to be adding an Elemental Hero Liquid Soldier off of the Shadow Mist, or sorry, off of the I Sold, and then Malicious off of the Shadow Mist. So they do still get to summon their Infernal Knight by sending one of their cards. Oh, and they get to add the Smoke Grenade back. Shoot, I actually totally forgot about that. But that actually lets you add back a banished. Huh, okay, so... yeah, all those points about, oh, we banished a Smoke Grenade. Never mind, I guess that was just a moot point, but... doesn't really seem like they're primarily going for that anyway. Looks like they're just fusing for a DPE here. Using Neos and Denier. Ah, that's right. I had the Destruction for the Smoke Grenade anyway, so it didn't ultimately really end up mattering here. Yeah, that was interesting. I don't know if my opponent thought that this destroyed any spell or trap card, and they thought I'd have to blow up my own fountain, but nope. You get to just it just fizzles if your opponent doesn't have a back row to blow up. Yeah, so here I figured my opponent was probably just gonna, you know, use the DPE to get rid of my fountain, which is, you know, annoying. I obviously would have liked those two draws, but the most important here is just getting out a level 2 monster, so that way I can special my Spright Blue, and then my Jet, and then now we just have plays at this point. It's kind of nice actually. Once you special summon the Spright Blue, it's such a relief because it just feels like you can, at least I just feel like the mental load being taken off. Like I feel like, oh, I don't have to think anymore this turn. Well, as much anyway this turn. I just still have to figure out how I want to get rid of this DPE without necessarily like triggering it to come back during the next standby phase. So I decided to just go with the Onibimaru Soul Sweeper for that. Yep, I'll just use that to banish the DPE, and then from there we can go into our Spright Elf. Ooh, excuse me. And then we'll bring back Red. And, yeah, wow, I actually did move to battle phase that time. I don't think I did on my last turn, though. In any case, either way, do make sure that you're moving to your battle phase every single time when you're playing this deck. Don't be like me, who always forgets to do it. Definitely don't want that happening. Yeah, so my opponent's got a droplet for me here. Which sucks, but it's not the end of the world. Because they are still going to be under the Maxx here, as you can see. This Dark Angel was very scary. I was like, oh god, please don't put that on my field, because for those who don't know, the Destiny Hero Dark Angel can summon itself to the opponent's field, and if that's the case, then, yeah, you don't get to activate spell cards, really. I mean, you do, they just all get negated and destroyed, so it's like moot point there. So I was getting a little bit anxious as my opponent started to summon, you know, more and more cards, because I know I don't have an Nibiru in this deck that I can draw into with the Maxx. So I'm really just going to have to hope here that my opponent's not able to win the duel on this turn. I do have 2 monsters in defense mode, as well as 5,800 life points, so I'm feeling fairly good about my ability to survive this, but As the opponent continues to play, I definitely get a lot less confident, but then they move to battle phase, and with this kind of board, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, no, this is fine. Also, the nice thing about them destroying the Onibimaru is that now I don't have to worry about their DPE anymore. And it's funny, I'm pretty sure, like, just after, yeah, I was gonna say, just after they battle, my opponent ended up conceding here, as they realized, maybe they didn't realize before that they wouldn't get their DPE back, but yeah, the Onibimaru does have that effect. If it gets destroyed, it shuffles back the cards that it banished into the deck, so that way, yeah, they just don't end up coming back, which is really nice. So there's that game. There are those duels there. Let's go ahead and move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.